Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of the Unexplained. I am your host, Jim Kelgard, and it's always great to see my good buddies here, Mr. John Stratton and John Nyberger. And so we have to start off, first of all, by welcoming the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. John Stratton. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right, fighting off a little bit of a cold, but I knew that would happen after being around of a bunch of people at, a couple of different funerals, unfortunately, I had to go to. Being around kids, they're germ factories. So, just pushing through a little bit of a cold today. So forgive me if I'm having to mute myself or if I forget to.
No worries. Thanks for being the trooper and joining us despite the fact there. Mr. Nyberger, my favorite Denver Broncos fan, we have another, we have to add additionally to the legend of John Nyberger because rumor has it, buddy, you've been pissing rocks lately.
Yes. Let's see, would it be the largest kidney stone to ever appear at Phenomicon? Maybe. I'm not sure how that works out. Yes, it was large and needed to be removed, and thank God it was. Yeah.
Right
I don't know how
on.
much more we want to say about that while we're recording, but it was not fun.
No. Well, we are grateful.
Didn't bring a geologist today.
That's right. Where's Chris Roberts when we need him?
That's right.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, John. And of course, folks, we are deeply honored to present our special guest today, somebody that the three of us, me, John, and Jonny, are such big fans of, gave what is clearly, in my opinion, and I think John and Jonny share my opinion on this, one of the greatest presentations ever given at Phenomicon. And I've been going since year one, folks, and I'm here to tell you, this gentleman that's joining us today is really going to keep your attention and then some. And if you pay close attention, you might learn something today, folks. So with that, allow me to introduce the awesome Ben Woodruff, biologist and somebody who spent some time out there at this wonderful little paranormal Disneyland that we love to call Skinwalker Ranch. Ben, welcome to the Soul of the Unexplained. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Great to be here with you.
Right on. So good to see you. So Ben, let's go ahead and dive right in here. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started in the field of biology, and what kind of steered you in that direction?
It's a more interesting story than you'd think, and it goes kind of all over the place. And it's kind of honestly why I ended up at Skinwalker Ranch, because so many subject matter experts at the ranch are just like, this is my one subject. And I've got such a strange, odd range of experience that I can see patterns that cross over different fields of science. As a kid growing up, I was obsessed with animals and nature. I didn't understand like people. Who cares about that? I want, nature, animals, plants. So I learned all I could. And I got into falconry like fourth or fifth grade. I got my first falcon. It was an American kestrel, old timers call them sparrowhawks. I used to,
Yeah.
and so raised those, kind of blundered my way through and started doing a lot of falconry. But my real passion was dinosaurs and prehistoric life. And so in my 20s, I was at the College of Eastern Utah and had training in paleontology and paleobiology under Don Burge. And I wanted to go that direction. But the interesting thing is he was into experimental archaeology. So he's a paleontologist, but he was teaching me how to flint knap. He was teaching me how to make sinew-backed bows and how to hunt deer like primitive ways and primitive fire starting and all this stuff. And so that was always in the back of my head, is all this archaeology and learning and the hands-on of actually doing things. So that was always in there. But then I ended up getting so into the falconry aspect and the raptor biology, I ended up starting my own nonprofit. It was called Sky Masters Wildlife Foundation. Dumb name, but it was a cool organization. And we did raptor rehab, raptor biology, falconry, raptor education. But we did a lot with other animals too, mostly carnivores, but some herbivores. And I was doing that for years and years and years. And then the Hutchings Museum hired me on and they said, well, we want you to come here and bring your expertise in the museum. And it was like, this is like a kid in a candy shop. This museum,
Right.
It's got a little bit of everything. It's got an incredible world-class rock and mineral and gem collection. It's got Native American artifacts, pioneer history, Wild West, and an amazing fossil collection. And so just doing that and bringing that breadth up and teaching, sharing, learning. We cast velociraptor skeletons and articulated them. We, made educational videos, and we just, fossil prep. So so I gained a lot more experience in archaeological prep and fossil prep, as well as still doing the biology work I was doing. It gave me the freedom to keep learning in every direction. Well, it turns out Brandon Fugel is a fan since childhood of the Hutchings Museum, and he always loved it. And he knew, I think, John when he was when Brandon was a kid, and so he was a friend of the museum. And he was like, you got to come out to Skinwalker Ranch and do a biological survey. So I started doing that, and I started finding, and I was always there first before they ever had the TV show. And then once they had the TV show, they would always have me out when it wasn't going on. And I started finding so many strange, anomalous things that crossed over, from things with plants, things with animals, things with geology. I'm not a geologist, but, working here, I've got, some understanding. And so finally they said, well, we're going to start putting you on the show because you're finding too much stuff. This is good content to film. So came in it in a roundabout way. And I think what I bring to it is, again, such a broad range. Chris Roberts and I will talk up a storm on archaeology, and it's like, well, my background's in biology and paleobiology, but I've worked in archaeology. I've worked on archaeological digs. I've worked on paleontological digs. So it just brings different areas of expertise together. So that's kind of how I came to it.
That is awesome. I've actually had the pleasure of going to the Hutchings Museum Institute, and like you said, it's got so many amazing exhibits. It's everything from when you first walk in through the entrance there, you go into this great presentation that has all these minerals and rocks that are just so unique and fascinating. I've always been interested in rocks, and maybe that's why I've had 72 kidney stones in my lifetime. But who knows? But it's a really cool museum, and I really I like how it has, like you said, a little bit of everything. It's got some old west stuff from the ancient days in Utah. It's got a lot of Native American stuff in there, and just a really great place to go and spend an afternoon, whether you're an adult or a kid. And especially if you're a kid, there's all kinds of really cool stuff in there. So massive tip of the hat to you and everybody that runs the Hutchings Museum, because it's such a great place to go. So let's segue that then, Ben. Tell us a little bit about your background of falconry, because that's really cool, and especially I have to be the lame comedian here, okay? Now, anybody that knows me knows that one of my absolute favorite bands of all time is a band from England called Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, or OMD. In fact, I'm wearing the T-shirt right now. But there's this great old joke about, you mentioned you had a kestrel. So does your kestrel maneuver in the dark? Sorry, I
I
had to
did a
go there.
video on training him how to fly in the dark. Actually, I have a video out there about that. Yeah. So when I got into it at a very strange time where the old timers were kind of safeguarding the sport, and there was some things that happened in the 1970s where with the Operation Falcon, where there was this false idea that falconers were illegally going up to Alaska, bringing in gyr falcons and then selling them overseas to wealthy sheiks in the Middle East. Wasn't actually happening, but because there were some sting operations that happened to try to catch people and didn't amount to anything, then nobody would share information. And there was no internet, and there was very few books. So I kind of was blundering my way. I was a kid. I thought I was the only falconer in Utah. I had no idea. And so I was practicing illegally for a few years. And then somebody said, no, there's permits and there's falconers. I met a falconer once. There's falconers here. I'm like, really? Oh, so I turned myself in, and the government was kind of like, well, you seem to know what you're doing here. Take the test. We're going to take your bird away, but take the test and start over, start an apprenticeship, and we'll let you do falconry. And even then, you couldn't get people to teach it worth squat. So I had to blunder my way. And so I've written books on it. And that's why I started my YouTube channel, is because I want people to have access to that information and to learn from my, hard work of making so many mistakes. But I mean, I've trained like everything, like every bird, every raptor native to Utah in some way I've trained or worked with, and just about every bird in the raptor in the United States. I've trained lots of foreign species. And I've, usually if you're a falconer, you're like, okay, I'm into falcons, or I'm into hawks, or I'm into owls, and I'm just gonna get, just falcons and just fly it in the falcon way. But I'm like, I want to do it all. I want to experience it all. And so I have this odd breadth and doing education and wildlife rehab as well. That's not normal. Normally, I'm just a rehabber, or I'm just an educator, or I just work at a zoo. And it's like, no. And and you couldn't get an eagle to save your life. There's laws in place where you can, but again, they kind of guard it so you can't. And one of the things they're like, well, to get an education eagle, you have to be part of a nonprofit. And I'm like, okay, then I'm going to go out and start a nonprofit. So I started a nonprofit specifically to be able to qualify to be able to give the education eagle permits. I had falconry eagles too. The thing about falconry that's amazing in America, if you go to Europe, it's like seeing a fireman. If you see a fireman, it's like, oh, look, kids wave at the fireman. That's what it's like being a falconer in the old world. In America, it's like, oh, that's terrible that you would take that bird away, from the wild. It's like, no, look, I'm setting it free. It's flying on its own and choosing to come back. That's a lot more free than your dog, that maybe you take it to the park a couple times a week. It's like this bird's going up thousands of feet, diving hundreds of miles an hour, coming back. It's incredible. It's choosing to come back. Falconry is a totally natural experience for both predator and prey. If the prey gets caught, that happens in the wild. If the prey gets away, that happens in the wild. And it's just a natural experience. And you don't have to like it, but your goal is to let the bird have as close to a wild experience as possible. And just let them fly, let them hunt, let them do everything a wild bird does, and come back when they're done. And it is thrilling. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like that where you're sending a bird out into the wild and having it come back. It's like there's nothing. It's incredible. I'm going on and on, but it's
No,
an
no,
incredible feeling.
it's got to be thrilling because I've seen videos of nomads out in Mongolia, I think, that are using eagles and
Yeah,
other raptors for hunting and all kinds of stuff, and it just always struck me as a really, really cool thing. And
and
I don't
and the
know a
reason,
damn thing about it. And now you got me ready to go. I'm like, I want to go do this.
it's cool. It's
Oh,
really cool. And the
Lord.
neat thing is, it's not that it's better than with other mammals. It's just entirely different. Think of the bond with a horse or a dog or a parrot, anything. It is so different because your bird, you build a bond, but if you set them free, like you'll trap a migrating bird, fly them for the fall and winter, set them free in the spring, and they're not like, oh, I'm heartbroken. No, they're just, okay, I'm back in the wild. You made me help me through the season, and they're back in the wild. But yet there's nothing like having it fly that free. That I mean, just even a red-tailed hawk. It's kind of a starter bird. And if you're flying a red tail and your first time you're flying your red-tailed hawk free, and it just and it comes up and it puts all its wings and tail out and then lands on your glove and just comes to a gentle stop, and you're just like, oh, it's just like it's like the heavens open. It's the most incredible feeling. It's
I got to
addictive.
do it now. Got to do it.
And anybody can do it. If you're living in an apartment, if you're in a wheelchair, get a Kestrel and go hunt out your car window in a car. Literally, go after starlings. I mean, there's always a bird for every situation. I did them in college. I had like 2 Kestrels and a Ferruginous hawk in a 1-bedroom apartment in college, and still went out hunting them. You
so
can.
here's the big question: can they be trained to go pick up tacos for you?
Some could. I think
All
a
right,
Harris hawk could.
I'm in.
I think they could. I think that'll be actually pretty sweet. Ravens can. I've trained ravens to go after things for me, doing shows, and had ravens go out and bring it back, and they could definitely bring a taco, especially like a nice street taco.
Oh, heck yeah,
Yeah, ravens
yeah,
do it.
definitely. Well, I'm putting forth a suggestion right now, and John and Johnny, let me know if you back this up. I think we need to add you demonstrating falconry as an add-on at Phenomicon.
I think so. I
That
think
would be
that'd
a
be awesome.
That really
fantastic
should be a
add-on.
thing. Yeah.
Yep.
It would be really cool. I'm getting the coolest bird, the weirdest, coolest bird from Texas. Nobody uses these birds in America. And it's really kind of Latin American bird that's barely up here. It's called a crested caracara, although now apparently everybody pronounces it caracara. But look them up. They're really weird. It's like a falcon that evolved into a hawk. They spend a lot of time running and hunting on the ground, but they also fly and hunt. They're weird looking. And I got somebody lining up to be able to give me one from Texas, and with all the legal permits and everything. And if that happens, that goes through, then that's going to be nobody trains them, nobody flies them, and they should. I'm super excited for it.
I just pulled it up. That's a cool looking bird. I don't think I've ever seen anything that looks
freaky
like that.
Looking, weird, yeah, and they're everything that a falcon is. They're not. It's like if you took a Lego kit for the Millennium Falcon and instead you use those same parts to make a Pokemon. That's what you got. It's like you took a falcon and you made a hawk. Everything's but they're cool. They're really
it looks
cool.
like two different birds sewn together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a odd bird.
So what you're saying is this bird can make the jump to light speed and do the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
Less than 12. Less than 12. At least 11.
That's awesome. Right on. No, I would love to see something like that at Phenomicon. I mean, they're launching rockets. Might as well do. I think it'd be cool to go out there and do the falconry thing. I'd love to see that. That'd be great.
Well, and they're bioindicators, and that was the whole thought with the ranch. Was like, I mean, they can see better, they can hear better, they can see in spectrums of color and light that we cannot see. And like the owls have 3-dimensional hearing. They've never shown it, but I bring owls on the ranch. They never show it on the show, but they can triangulate, and they're like watching something move away. They're watching something, walk. It's like, what is that? Don't know.
Well, being an outlaw falconer isn't something I anticipated from you.
Yeah, right.
That part, that's what's sticking in my head. One thing that comes to mind, have you ever had one just not come back? When you're training these birds, do they just go off and decide, yeah, I'm not coming back?
They don't like take off on you, but you'll have circumstances like maybe if an eagle chases your falcon up and over a mountain, and then you're looking for it, it's looking for you. We have radio transmitters, and now we even have 3D GPS transmitters, which I've used on the ranch. And so it's not as bad as it used to be. So they don't take off. They learned it's a really good deal. They're like, I get to go hunt, I get to fly. If I don't catch anything, I still get a guaranteed meal. I get a safe home, I get protection from the shelter, protection from other predators. And a lot of times I'll keep the birds inside, just on a perch. They're just chilling. They have one foot up and they're poofing up their feathers on their head, and they're just watching TV with you. They're happy. They're like, I ate, I flew, I'm good. So they don't take off on you. But I've I've had hundreds. I mean, I've been doing this since like 4th grade. And I think I've lost 2 birds. And in one case, the bird got chased up and over a mountain by an eagle, never found it. And the other one, it was shot at and disappeared. And I think it died. I think they were shooting a shotgun at it, and it went up and over the ridge, and I couldn't find it. And I think it probably got shot and couldn't find me and I couldn't find it. But I think that's it. I think those are the only ones I've lost.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big crime for someone to do too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, it's you go to jail for that if you get caught.
They should.
Great segue. Talking about the falconry to let's kind of move to how that applies to some of the work that you've done out at Skinwalker Ranch. I was fortunate to attend a seminar that you gave back in January, and you talked about some really extraordinary experiences that you had at the ranch with the birds that you brought on the ranch. Can you tell us a little bit about how some of those incidents unfolded?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would, when we started seeing so many strange things, I thought, okay, well, what if we safely and cautiously, step by step, started bringing in raptors as bioindicator species? So we started with owls at first, and like I said, they would see things, and then I started bringing different owl species on, and then we brought a Harris hawk and let it fly around, and it seemed pretty normal. And so my buddy John and I were like, well, let's bring some peregrine falcons on, and let's get up, because hawks and owls are just kind of cruising along. They're like at the bottom of an ocean of air. Let's get a falcon that's going to go up. And so first we went over up by the triangle, and Eric and I were up on the hill, and we flew the falcon down through the triangle. And the falcon had a radio transmitter on and a 3D GPS transmitter on. And apparently this transmitter, Marshall radio, is our government attaches it to drones, because if you can knock down a drone, it won't knock out this transmitter, apparently. So bird goes through the triangle twice, and it the radio transmitter flares and makes sounds when it goes through the triangle. On the ground, the 3D GPS was showing John like in fast motion moving around, and he wasn't. He was just sitting there. Pick up the bird, do it again, same thing. And we're like, well, let's go out to the east field. Went out to the east field. Falcon starts going up. It's doing good. We're like, okay, we're done. Let's call it down. We go to call the bird down, and every time it would go, you have like a lure. It's like a fake bird just swinging around him. And some people, you keep swinging it, but we're like, no, we want the bird down. We want safety. So we're just plop. It's on the ground. And the bird goes to land on it, and right when it gets near the ground, it's like, ah! It freaked out. It started screaming. There's something that it was sensing from the ground that freaked it out, and it was like, ah! And it would go back around, come back down, ah! And it would freak out. And so finally, it just whatever was near emanating from the ground freaked it out so much, started going up, 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 up. And at about 500 feet, the GPS starts to glitch out because it's dot, 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 nothing, dot, 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 nothing, dot, dot, going up, going up, going up. And we're off. The TV crew's filming it. We're filming it. Boom, bird disappears. We're like, where to go? And I'm like looking on the GPS. I'm like, it's nowhere. Boom, it reappears over the triangle. And now it's moving, and the radio transmitter is accurate. We see the bird. The radio transmitter is accurately saying where the bird is. The GPS is saying it's tracking the motions of the bird, but it's not where the bird actually is. When we were done and we downloaded the file, it said that the bird went through the mesa, which is impossible. And nobody ever brings this part up either. If you're watching the show, when you see over the east field, there's this one time this white orb goes into the mesa. And there's another time when they're flying in Brandon's helicopter and you see something fly out from the mesa. It's right around sunset, and this white object comes out of the mesa. That is exactly where it says the bird went into the mesa and out of the mesa, those exact same spots. So bird was fine. Bird didn't care. We went and picked up the bird. It landed on the crack in that big tower on the ranch. And we just went and picked it up and was like, hey, okay. It's like, did you just go through a portal? What just happened? So they didn't put it in the show. They were going to put it the next year. They were going to put it in the next season and just plug it in as if it happened the year before, or, that year. But then there were people in those shots who were no longer on the ranch, and they said, oh, well, we can't do it then. I'm like, but this is big. This is a really big thing. So I would love to fly more birds there. I haven't seen any safety risks to any birds brought from off the ranch. So it's still something to be cautious about, but it seems like it's fine. Weird, huh? It's crazy. I don't know. It's exciting.
It is. I mean, it's one more layer of data, I guess we could say, for the extraordinary things that we've seen via the docuseries, where like the incident you're talking about, where the orb goes into the mesa at one point and then seemingly exits at another part of the mesa. And I know that they sometimes refer to that part of the mesa as the entry point or the entryway type thing, but it all still kind of helps in building that overall picture of there really truly is anomalous things that we don't understand, at least with the way we currently understand science and technology and physics, but yet there it is. The ranch is still showing us that these things that shouldn't be possible, but yet there they are unfolding before our very eyes. And I think that's just that's just extraordinary. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and the ranch really, I don't like using these terms, but the ranch behaves in a way. Well, okay, let me preface this. When we teach and learn about genetics, we talk about genetics as if they have a mind of their own and as if they have motivation. They don't. As far as we know, they don't. But the best way to describe the way they behave is using verbiage as if they do. Like, well, this is all the genes want, or genes are motivated by this. They're not motivated by anything. They're genes. There's just a bunch of proteins. And in a similar way, the ranch operates in a way as though it has awareness and as though it kind of has sort of a trickster spirit kind of vibe to it. And if you come in with a lot of bravado, a lot of times you get attacked. And if you come in and you're just like trying to learn, usually you don't get attacked in any way, and you get shown things to the point where you start to see renditions. It's almost like the ranch is anticipating, oh, okay, I'm going to show you something over here, or you're wanting to see this. Bam, here you go. It doesn't make sense, but that's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because if we go back to the very first season of the docuseries, and where we meet everybody on the ranch, and Travis Taylor comes in, and Thomas at one point, I believe, makes the comment to Travis and says, the ranch responds differently when we bring new people onto the property.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis kind of, sits back in his chair. It's kind of like, the ranch, you're talking like it's a person, and
Which
Travis
is
will
the
be the
proper scientific response.
yeah,
That's
exactly, and Travis will be the first one to tell you that there's definitely truth to that statement, that the ranch does respond differently. And we've had Caleb on. Caleb Bench has been on a number of times, Chris Bartell, and they've all talked about seeing that instance where if you go on the ranch and you have this attitude of it's all nonsense and BS, and I'm gonna Scooby Doo this and figure this out within an hour's time.
yeah.
Whereas if you go on with a bit of humility, and it's like, okay, teach me something, show me something extraordinary, that your experience is going to be far more different than somebody that goes in there with a kind of a negative, conceited and arrogant attitude of, I'm going to figure out what this is.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear you confirm that from your side as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's absolutely true. And I wish that it wasn't, because that doesn't make sense, but that's what still makes it fascinating. That's what draws me to the ranch, is that all these things, if you said, like, if you just said one thing, like if you're like, hey, here's a Bigfoot hotspot, or here's a spot where people see a bunch of UFOs, or here's a region where there's a lot of cattle mutilations. Okay, whether there is a paranormal explanation or not for those things, any one of those things, okay, sure, right. But the fact that all these things that have no relation, well, they do, but they shouldn't, that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, like, why would the internal gut bacteria of something behave differently on the ranch? It doesn't make sense. Why would a portal open up? Why would there be UFOs? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And all these things together, I think there's a lot more going on.
Why would there be a swath of all the same type of plant? Some of them are too alkali and some are too acidic.
Yeah.
I think you showed something like
direct line. Yep. In a direct line. They're growing like this side here, growing normal. And in this middle section, this perfectly straight area, they're all like growing withered, like their very DNA is causing them to grow in a malfunctioned form. It's unusual. Doesn't make sense.
The nice thing is, what I love about this, though, is it's measurable. Like some of the other stuff that they do with the physics side of it, like with the dome, the LiDAR, you have to have the conditions just right sometimes. You have to have the right equipment out there to measure it. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Even when you see it, it makes no damn sense, but
and it's profound, but you can't put your hands on it.
Right. But you can put your hands on that. You can, like, look at this plant. I tested this plant.
Yeah.
This is too acidic. This is alkaline, or whatever else it is. Like, there's a lot of stuff you're doing that you can measure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it gives any answers yet, but it's at least some real data, and not just a bunch more of what the hell.
Yeah, I mean, we've done DNA tests on that skeleton, on those remains. I'm like, that's solid, tangible evidence. And the other stuff, it's exciting, and it's maybe even more profound, but because it's intangible, it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's hard to kind of keep it in your mind. It's like, oh, okay, well, this laser beam got split and went two directions, like 1,000 feet up. That's literally impossible.
Right.
But it's just a memory of something you saw. It's like, well, what did that? But, you can't be like, boom, here's the DNA sample.
Right. Exactly. That's what I say about the ranch all the time is, about various events that can't happen, but it just happened. Like the laser stopping and starting again.
It's impossible.
Can't happen. LiDAR bouncing off of a dome in the sky when there's nothing there. Can't happen. but it's happening. You're right. But what do you do with that?
Yeah.
At least with DNA, you're like, okay, we know what the next step is here. Yeah, with the plants, like there are next steps that leads to further things that you already know what to do. It may be weird, but you kind of have an idea where to go. So I love it. It's like this whole new avenue of exploration that's completely unlike the physics side of it.
Yeah, and I think we need all of it. We need to understand that this is a broad approach and a broad investigation, and every piece might have meaning. It might seem little, but then to somebody in this field over here, you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's actually huge to my field of science.
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of all of the things. One of these, I like to say, I do a lot of like complex troubleshooting, completely unrelated to this, but my team gets involved when stuff is no one else can figure something out because it's too weird. Nothing makes any sense. And I always say we're missing that one thing that will make it all make sense. Like there's one piece of information. If we had that, all this disparate stuff would actually make sense now. And I kind of feel like that's what you're getting with the ranch, between the geology, the biology, the physics, everything we're bringing at it, the consciousness, you name it. At some point, there will be one more puzzle piece added, and we'll go, oh.
And then it'll all make sense.
It makes sense now. I mean, I might be 90 years old by the time that happens. We'll be on season 42 of the show, but we can hope.
Yeah. Well, that's and it kind of go ahead, Jonny.
Sorry, I was going to say, I hope this doesn't sound too sciencey to ask it this way. With the plants being different, do you feel like this might just be a matter of DNA replication being interrupted, or something of that nature causing the plants to change?
It could. So there's another example that I'll give too, and I think let's find to share. So one things we were going to do, and we haven't had them analyzed, we took soil samples as well, and we're also looking for microarthropods and to see is the soil that the plants are coming out of any different as well? Because the roots, the rhizomes are going to give you a good idea of what's going on underground, but the soil around is totally different. So if you have mutations to arthropods underground, that tells you maybe it could be like something, radioactive or something. There's another area on the ranch. There's a plant called the desert trumpet plant. It's in the buckwheat family. It grows in a very specific, mathematically perfect way. I've written up a formula of the math to replicate it. Like if you're going to put it in a computer and crank it out a rendering of it, it's beautiful, it's perfect, and it's weird looking. They even Star Trek even based an alien species off of this plant. And over in the East Field, it would grow to the first segment, have the bulb, and then go to the next three, bulb, and then and when it was like wackadoodle, just gone absolutely crazy. The next year, none of them grew back, and the next year after that, they all grew back normal. Now, plants grow in a certain way, so just like tree rings, that's happening everywhere else as well. And so that means it was growing normal, and then at a very specific time, something happened, something interrupted proper cellular regeneration. Don't know what that was, and it hasn't happened in that field in that way again. It's gone back to normal. So it's not just, oh, plants are growing weird here. It's not just where it happened, it's when it happened. And I don't know what was going on those days that it was growing in that way, but all of them in that whole area were all growing wackadoodle in that way. And so is it something that's happening? Is it something underground? Is it something that's an event? Not sure. But the plants, definitely, I think we should be paying a lot more attention to the plants. It's easy to think of them as a green background, but they are life forms that are trying to live and reproduce and defend themselves. And if you listen to what they have to say, they've got a lot to offer too, to tell you about an environment.
Speaking of that, have you looked at any tree rings?
We have
any anomalies?
Yeah, I would love to. We could take an increment borer and do it and then not even have to cut them down.
Yeah.
That actually, I would love to do that. That would be, that would be good to compare it with dendrochronology and see what have the growth patterns been like and what do we see as far, because there's Russian
olives.
And
is there an anomaly? Is there a year that tells you like, oh yeah, something strange happened this year that you wouldn't expect?
And kind of like how we use sharks and we look at sharks to find the age based off of the radiation they were exposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a really good thing to do, actually. Again, if we did that this season, we get an increment borer and just line it up with the dendrochronology of the area and say, so we can see, is this any different time-wise and event-wise? That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, fantastic idea. So this all kind of plays into, you know, one of the biggest criticisms that we always hear about the docuseries is, oh, it's all fake, it's all nonsense, it's all scripted, and really, and we've said this a number of times here on our podcast, but anybody that says that just honestly does not watch the show, because there's no way that you can pay attention to the docuseries and not see that this is in fact a scientific driven research endeavor that's out there, and there really is a lot of data, truly extraordinary data being gathered. And like you said, having, now that we have you and especially Chris Roberts and his xenoarchaeology, I remember that word from last time, guys, xenoarchaeology. There's just the fact that you guys are attacking this anomaly from all of the different angles to truly try to figure out what is going on there is just, I think it's amazing. How can anybody not be interested by the stuff that goes on out there? That is, you know, a lot of people are just, they don't want to get involved with the woo factor, right? But how can you not see the stuff that happens that is caught not just on camera, but various sensor platforms that they have on the ranch, and still say, no, it's all just trickery and BS and nonsense? And there's no way, there's just no way with the level of credible subject matter experts and people like Jim Royston and Sam DeRizzo and Eric and Travis Taylor. I mean, literally, Pete Kelsey, one of the greatest imaging experts in the world that they have out there. And then now they've got Chris and they've got you. I mean, it's like, you know, if you're putting together an all-star team to figure out a strange phenomena, I can't think of a better team than what's assembled out there. And having you on there just kind of is like the icing on the cake, having you and Chris both out there. So that's, as a Skinwalker Ranch insider and fan, it's just such an exciting time to see all the great stuff that you guys are discovering out there.
I think at this point, all they're really missing is a bass player.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, indeed.
I hate to tell you, John, but they do have one, unfortunately.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember his name right now, but I know exactly who it is on the team.
Oh, you're not talking about that guy that played at Phenomicon, are you?
No. Was
you
it
mean
the
a
Lock
crew
Precision guys?
member?
I'm pretty sure one of the Lock Precision guys plays bass.
That doesn't count.
Okay, good.
Well, I think the big thing, though, like with what you're saying about people, detractors, I think people don't want to be duped. And that's a good thing to have as a basic instinct. But the problem is, being a self-proclaimed skeptic or a self-proclaimed believer is not good. You want to be skeptical, but not a skeptic. You want to be, oh, I believe this based off of what I've seen, but I'm not a defined believer. It's like, yeah, show me the evidence. I'm skeptical. Let me learn, let me see, and then I'll form my own opinion. And if I form opinion that I believe this to be accurate, then I believe it. But that doesn't make me a believer or a skeptic. If you're a skeptic, then truth can hit you in the side of the head with a baseball bat and you're going to ignore it because no, I have to be defined. I'm a skeptic. I can't believe anything. It's like, well, that's not healthy. That's not good science. That's not a good way to approach the world. Don't believe everything and don't disbelieve everything. Both of those are unhealthy.
Follow the data.
Follow the data.
if you want to ignore the woo, just follow the data. Like you said, here are things I have tested. Here are the results. These are anomalous. What then? Now what can I check? What can I test? What hypotheses can I generate to come up with some more testing ideas and things to look at? That's science.
That's good science.
Forget the woo. Just do the science.
And it's okay to be wrong. You have a hypothesis you're testing and it proves to be wrong. Good. Then you get to have new tests. You get to till you get it right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a live viewer question. You didn't know we had live viewers.
I didn't.
Well, we don't. I was chatting with someone who may or may not be related closely to Jonathan Stratton there, and she says to ask you the following question: if he knows why the field east of the triangle tends to be more green and healthy looking than the area directly south of the triangle, all that divides those sections is a fence and a small dirt road.
I don't have any working theory or hypothesis on why. We don't know. We just know that we've observed it. I would be really interested to do some testing underground to see how the flow of water works. The karst, how water is seeping through. You have limestone in the area, you have sandstone in the area. I mean, there's an absolute river going through one section of the ranch. It's like, 20 feet down, that's just cutting across at a strange angle. But beyond water, I think there's something else going on. And I can't fathom that kind of science that you could have just regionally, like that whole runway area where the plants are growing different, or where this is really lush, this is not. That makes absolutely zero sense to me. So I don't have a theory, but all we can do is observe it and note it. And we have a good collection of the bugs here too, and it's the same thing. The area that's really lush uh, it has certain bugs and insects, arthropods, and the area that's desolate does not. When we've gone through, you just take a butterfly net and have kids run through as fast as they can, and just get a biosampling. And that one area, it's just stripped of life comparatively. It's really strange.
Wow.
It's a weird place.
Interesting.
Even if there's a mundane
mother,
explanation for it,
Mhm.
it's a weird place. What was that, Johnny?
Thinking of my mother, just because you're a birds guy, you should 100% try to get her to interact with her favorite. I'm going to just say, if you know my mother, her favorite birds ever are owls. Definitely surprise her with owls. She will love you so much.
Bringing one to Phenomicon, bringing a great horned owl.
She honestly hates owls. She's
I
terrified.
was going to say, you're getting set up, Ben. Don't listen to him. It's a setup.
Well, my mother has a real weird dislike of owls, so.
Well, then she's probably more in touch with nature than everybody else, because humans are the only things that like owls. Everyone and everything else hates them and will go out of their way to drive them off or kill them. Most Native American tribes associate them with great evil, with the lords of Xibalba and the underworld. They're connected to, and they see in other realms. I swear they see ghosts or spirits or something in a literal way. You'll just see them, and all of a sudden they're like following something, and they're poofing up, kind of like cats do in a house randomly, but much more. When an owl puts their wings up backwards and poofs out their head and they're freaking out at something, and you can see they're tracking, something's walking towards them. It's like, there's nothing there. This is in a house. What are you doing? So I think they do see something. I don't know what it is, but they react.
You mentioned in the presentation that I attended that you had an owl there on the ranch that looked like it was actually tracking something. Can you just quickly tell us the story on that?
Yep, I've done that with two different great horned owls, a male and a female, and with a barn owl. And the barn owl especially was like keyed in and following, and it was but it's where now the helicopter pad's there. I guess the pad was there, but the Kraken wasn't there at the time. And it was out there, and they were just like looking, and they're both like just watching and tracking and like looking and getting kind of scared and spooked. Which I would love to document. I mean, we were just doing that casually. That was before the show even. And I would love to go do that again and bring owls out. Every time lately, because it's like, used to be in the old days, I'd go out there all the time, and then I wasn't on the show, but I would just go out there all the time. And now that it's like, well, we're going to have you come out for the show. And it's like, well, I'd love to come out with the show not going and do some of these experiments. We can film them. You can have the footage. But that's every time lately that I brought owls out there, it's when they're filming and they're like, oh, we didn't have time to get to it. It's like, okay, can I stay an extra day and just do experiments off camera? Can I just go with Caleb and Nate and go somewhere else and just go film? because they're incredible bioindicator species. That most owls are fluorescent colors. If you open up their wings, shine a black light on them, you'll see they have like pink and purple stripes that are invisible to us. They see things we don't see, and so if you can see in those spectrums, then if whatever anomaly there is shows up in those spectrums, then they can see things that we can't see. And there's an emotional connection. If you just see a meter and you're like, oh, we have a radiation spike, okay, that's profound, but the depth of it doesn't show up. If you see an owl genuinely terrified and getting freaked out by something, it's having an emotional response to something it sees that we don't see, that helps carry a lot of weight. So I think we should do a lot more of that.
Yeah, I'd love to see some experiments like that for sure.
You know, I was just looking at something. I was going to ask you, but while you were talking, I had to just go look it up about what wavelengths owls can see that we can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wondered if it was infrared, but it's not. It's ultraviolet.
Mm-hmm.
Ultraviolet. Yeah.
That's fascinating, because that tells you, because I've always heard like UFOs, UAP, some of this other weird stuff might be kind of hiding in infrared wavelengths that we can't see, and you can spot them if you have an infrared scope or detector. But if it's ultraviolet, that's even more fascinating. I don't know why it is, because that's not heat. It's not looking for heat. That's just a different wavelength that we absolutely can't see. That they might, but if that's where they're seeing these things, then that tells you, okay, well, now you need some sensors to detect those ranges, and then look at.
There's a whole world out there. If you check and see, like, most plants they have colors and spots. It's almost like runways to try to guide pollinators to exactly where to go to pollinate. And we don't see them. We just see the very basics. There's a whole visual world we're missing out on, and the owls can reach more of that spectrum and sound too. Like an owl, these are not the ears. These are just a crest. The ears are down here. One of them is higher and bigger. One of them is lower and pointing downward. And that facial disc, all of the feathers on the facial disc, it's like a porcupine quill with a tuft at the end. And you just see the fluff in front, so you just think it's a fluffy face. It's not. The eyeball is the outer edge of the face of the owl. Everything else is fluff, and they shift them to change the pitch and how the sound hits and how it goes in. So it's like these satellite dishes of curved porcupine quills with a tuft on the end. They're very elaborate. And so 3-dimensional hearing, they triangulate sound in a way we can't even fathom.
That is amazing.
That's nuts.
Wow.
I think owls are a lot stranger than we give them credit for.
Yeah. Look up barn owl skeletons, or like barn owl skinned, like a taxidermy one. It'll mess with your head. They look like aliens. They have all these long, skinny heads, long, skinny necks. Like great horned owl, biggest owl we have in Utah. The neck is only as big around as my index finger, and it's this long. They have it snaked around, and they just have so many poofy feathers. And then if all of a sudden they stretch out their neck, and everybody gets excited. Ooh, well, an owl can turn its head backwards. All birds can. A golden eagle can turn its head further than an owl can. Nobody cares. It's just because owls look like they have this short, stumpy neck. They don't. They have a neck like a crane. They just have that many feathers sticking out. It's insane. Which makes you wonder what dinosaurs really look like.
Right?
Might have been poofed out totally different than we imagine.
Yeah. Speaking of kind of unsettling things, there was an experience you had at the ranch where let's talk a little bit about the strange rate of decomposition of animals that have passed away on the ranch. And we got to see a little glimpse of this during I believe it was season 5 or season 6 of the docuseries. But can you tell us a little bit about how that kind of all unfolded? And was that like one of the first times we were like, okay, this is literally breaking reality, because this is not what's supposed to happen. I mean, when when you're dealing with something that dies, all living things, they go through, I know, believe it or not, folks, there was a brief period in time I actually considered the possibility of going into mortuary science for a career. Glad I didn't do that. So, but I got to study things like thanatochemistry and learned about putrefaction and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are certain things that happen when, whether it's a bird or a human being, when you die, there's a certain cellular breakdown that begins happening pretty
Mm-hmm.
much immediately.
Yep.
And we saw play out on the ranch multiple times that for some reason that process of nature seems to be paused or put on hold. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about the background on those bizarre decomposition things.
So my first time to the ranch, right at the gate, there was a dead rabbit and it was just there. And I thought, well, okay, how strange. It's not bloating and there's no flies. Kept coming back 3 days. And finally, like on the fourth day, it was gone after we had photographed and filmed it. There were never any flies. It never bloated. There was never any scavengers, nothing. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So we started documenting things. We found a dead skunk over by Homestead 2. And for 3 years, it didn't decompose. It looked like a taxidermy specimen. And it was just, it wouldn't bloat, it wouldn't decompose. So the science of decomposition is called taphonomy. And the breakdown, the first thing that happens, you have gastrointestinal bacteria in you. Without it, you would die. It breaks down the food you eat. It eats some of it, and then allows you to pull nutrients from it. When you die, then that's like, wait, there's not a new steady stream of food. And they start eating your gastrointestinal system, the lining. Now, when they have to work harder for their food, then they off gas more. They're inhaling and exhaling. So that's why, for example, it's gross. But if you eat beans and you fart, that's because beans are harder to break down. So those microbes are having to work harder. They're exhaling more. So the really, truly gross thing is when you fart, you're not actually farting. You're farting the exhaled gases of these microbes. It's not actually you. So you can blame it on them. Um, when you break down, they start working harder. And there's not the normal gas exhalation coming out from, the whole gastro system. And so the animal begins to bloat. There's nowhere for those gases to go. That always happens across the board, no matter what. On the ranch, if you are deer sized or smaller, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're a bird, if you are a snake, if you are a raccoon, if you are a deer, if you are a coyote, a raccoon, a skunk, you just don't. You just don't off gas, you don't swell up. For the most part, flies, leave them alone. So what happens is the wet areas start to break down from bacteria, and then you'll have flies will come. They'll lay their eggs, and the flies will, the maggots will digestive enzymes, and then it gets really nasty and gross and all the blah 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 blah. Doesn't happen on the ranch with small animals, small to medium sized at all. Some of these animals, you pick them up and they stay floppy. So the tendons and the acids in you tense up, and that's rigor mortis when you get really stiff. Doesn't happen. They stay floppy, sometimes completely floppy for days at a time, for weeks at a time. So externally, the bacteria is ignoring them. Internally, the internal gastrointestinal bacteria is not active, not doing its thing, and external scavengers, ravens, crows, magpies, coyotes, foxes, raccoons, skunks, badgers, leave them alone. It makes absolutely no sense because these are two processes, internal biological processes and external microbial and macrocrobial, like predators and scavengers. Those don't relate. They don't overlap. They don't. And so the fact that both of these don't have, now, big animals do. The cattle will decompose fairly normally, but then we've seen like a lot of the cattle, they die and they rotate forward. But then after, when the tendons start to dry, they do the dinosaur death pose, which is spiraling up backwards. It's not normal for a mammal. We checked I guess I can say it's because it was off the ranch, so it's not part of the show. Caleb and Nathan and Chris and I checked out. We've been monitoring a cow just off the ranch, and for a month now, it's not bloating, it's not decomposing. It barely started to have a few maggots on the tongue, but it is squishy, soft to the touch, no rigor mortis, nothing, and it's just off the ranch. And what I see is that whatever phenomenon happens on the ranch, it's like a bowl, and the more you fall into the ranch, the more those manifest. And the further you get out, the whole basin's weird, but right at the bottom is the range. The wolf in the river, that thing did decompose correctly, but it was in water. So that is something to note. That water apparently is a factor on smaller animals. That if you're in the water, it'll still decompose. But if you're on land, birds, mammals, reptiles, they don't decompose right. We had 2 quail, stayed completely squishy. We left them out in the sun 2 feet away from a fire ant hill. The fire ants would not touch it for 3 days. And we put them in the freezer because it's like, okay, just dead quail sitting here, totally soft, no stink, never. And this is July heat. They never dried out. Birds aren't that wet, it should have dried out. So I have zero theory. I got different thoughts, but I don't know how radiation could impact things, but what would do that? But
And what level of radiation could stop those processes without just killing the animal in the first place?
Yeah. And so the question is, are these things happening because the animals are on the ranch or because they are from the ranch? That's the question. So we want to take some dead animals from off the ranch, totally off the ranch, and bring them over. Even just like bring a fryer chicken, tie it up, see what happens, see if it decomposes, see if scavengers leave it alone. Because there's no waste in nature. And this is what we see. We see blatant waste. We see a region centered in this organism that is now dead where you see waste, and there is no waste. Down to the microbial level, at least, you're not going to have waste, and you do. So it doesn't make sense.
What would be a normal timeline compared to what you're seeing on the ranch for one of these animals to start the process, getting into rigor mortis, and then decomposing?
So within a half an hour, rigor mortis should set in. Like, let's say you have a coyote, and let's say it's in kind of kind of by the command center. So you're kind of under cottonwood trees. You got some sun, you got some shade. You're going to have rigor mortis within a half an hour. It's going to set in. It's going to be stiff, and then it's going to soften up again about 30, 40 minutes after that, and then it will reset in and stay stiff forever after. The gut area is immediately going to start to bloat, and that's going to go up. You're going to start to have scavengers. At night, definitely you're going to have skunks come and start chewing off of it. Foxes, raccoons are going to be chewing off of it. They're going to go for specifics around the head, and if it's a bigger animal, around the butt. Once the stomach bursts open, whether it's coming out the back end or from underneath from scavengers poking holes, then you're going to have another range of smaller scavengers that are going to start to come in. So that's within the first week. You're going to have the chest cavity open, and it's going to be bloating within the first 2 days, maybe 3 if it's really shady, maybe 3 days. But 2 days it's going to be bloating, and that bloating is going to go more and more and more until the chest cavity opens up. And normally in an area like that in the Uintah Basin, within a week, most of the animal's going to be gone. You're going to have chunks. Coyotes are going to drag off a leg and going to go to a safer place to eat it, drag off the head and try to chew out, get the brain. So you're looking on years like this, any time of year, really, you're looking at a week and a half, and there's going to be a few parts left, and that's it. And instead, we're seeing like that one skunk was there for 3 years, totally uninterrupted. So, yeah.
There was some of them with the birds. The beaks looked like they had been damaged. Would that potentially have been indicative of them running into some kind of like a blunt force, like running into a wall or
it
something like that?
I've got bird beaks, so I can grab a skull. And this is a condor. This is way larger. Okay, so a bird beak. So the beak opens up, right? So you have the beak. Actually, that's not the best example, but so this section right here, this can open up a little bit. It can stretch a little bit, but other than that, it's basically all one thing. Okay, so if you look at how the lower mandible fits in under the upper mandible, right? Okay, so we found these 2 quail, and their upper mandible was so pretend it's still attached. It was bashed in like this, but the whole upper skull was still in, but it was bashed in like this. The lower mandible was still sticking out. Hope you can see that. So it's So if it's going like this, it was like bashed in, and the lower part was just fine on both of these quail. So if you hit something, then that should hit both the upper and lower mandible. Both the
Right.
male and the female quail, same exact thing, same exact top bashed in, bottom still in place. So if they hit something, that should do both. In fact, it should cave in that way. It should cave them both in, because that upper beak should just push in the lower beak. So it's like they had to be open and have that pushed in somehow, which doesn't track. It's
Was there obvious
completely
sign of
illogical.
trauma or
I can't think of anything that would do that. I can't think of what. There's got to be something, because it happened.
right?
Yeah.
But
It's
was
not a
there sign of
biological
injury
thing.
to cause it, or was it still all intact?
The both the quail were completely intact. The skull was intact. The bones were intact. But yeah, that upper beak was just bent and broken. So that section right here of bone was broken and pushed in, and the lower beak was still out. So anything hitting the face should have done that,
Right.
or it should have
Well,
been
and
broken
and I, and I
sideways.
would I would imagine it would also probably translate to a neck injury, like severing the
Hmm.
neck or something like that. If it was a true blunt force, like it ran into a window or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, it would snap the neck, but but there was no evidence
No,
of
no
that either,
breaks,
was
no
there?
breaks whatsoever. We checked all the bones, everything was fine, and they stayed soft and pliable and not stinky for days.
Man. I have no
So
idea. It's
yeah,
just
I got nothing on that, and that one was weird
yeah.
too, because it was almost like the phenomenon wanted us to see it. Because right when I showed up, I go walking out, and boom, there's one right there. And then the production manager came out, and he sees one, and we're like, oh, it's like right when I show up, dead stuff. Here you go. You want dead stuff? Here you go. It's very
Uh,
strange.
so let's kind of segue from there into another big story surrounding the ranch, and we touched upon it a moment ago with the carcass of a canine-like animal that was discovered in the creek by the team members.
Hmm.
And in subsequent results, they were able to parse out some DNA data, and that data was quite extraordinary regarding what came back as the result. So can you kind of walk us through how all of that process went from them discovering the carcass and of course my eyes nearly bulged out of my sockets when you showed the dire wolf
Hmm.
with the hole that was in the rib, because there were so many people, particularly on the insider forum for a while, that were like, oh, that's clearly just a bullet that somebody shot a firearm, and it's like, well, you don't really understand what happens with ballistics when a bullet hits a bone. It's not going to be that clean, for one thing, and so but I digress. So I'll let you kind of walk us through how that whole unbelievable process unfolded.
Yeah, so they were doing another experiment when I wasn't there that day, and it was they were walking the whole creek, and they had instruments on some kayaks, and so they weren't looking for biological samples. And they looked across, and they see it said this dead canine, and they're like, "Oh, it's just like some weird dead dog or something. I don't know." And it stinks so badly, so stinking badly. And they had the foresight to say, well, we'd love to take it, but it reeks so bad. Well, hey, let's just at least get the jaw and give it to Ben. So they cut off the jaw, and when they brought it back, and they sent me a picture, I don't know, like a week later or something. I was like, what? Oh, go back and get the rest, please. And by then, the rest of the skull had dislodged and washed down river. So they got most of the rest of the skeleton for me, froze it in a big block. So I had it in my garden in like this triple garbage bag, and I only recently, just a few months ago, opened it up because, I was letting the microbes do their thing, and like a soap formed over it. I don't know if you've heard of that, where like you have like soap mummies and stuff, or like this white soapy stuff will form over. Like you
Is it
can look up soap
is
mummies.
it
It's a
is is is
phenomenon.
is it adipocere? Is that what it is? Like the
I
waxy kind of type thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I'm in the process now of cleaning these, documenting it, and then gonna articulate or just see what we can find from the bones themselves, which will be good new information. But so like, okay, well, the jaw, it's like I'm like, this is the size and shape and the number of teeth that it matches like a subadult dire wolf. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying whatever this thing is, it's not normal. Can we do a DNA test? So they said, sure. So I pulled the biggest tooth out and I gave it to the team and it disappeared. I don't know if somebody wandered off with it or what, but that was the one to do the DNA test. They're like, oh, we can't find it. Can you get another one? So I got the next biggest tooth out. We shipped it to Colossal Bioscience. They did the test and it came back as like, so 10%, 11%, give or take, of it is gray wolf, but it's Greenland gray wolf and Eurasian gray wolf. These are two distinct different wolves from other parts of the world, neither of which should be in Utah. That alone should be big news. If we're like 10% of this animal was Greenland gray wolf and Eurasian gray wolf, we don't have those in America. That's actually really big. And I get if you say, oh, wolf or gray wolf, okay, you just dismiss it. It's like biologically, this is enormous. And people just dismissed that part of the equation. But the other 89, 90% was an unknown canine, an unknown new wolf. It's not necessarily a dire wolf. And Eric was calling it a crypto wolf. And I wish we had ran with that but whatever this is, it's a new canine. And Colossal Bioscience, if you go to their list, they've got like stinking everything documented. They've got like even the Papuan singing dogs sequence. They've got like every canine in the world, every obscure canine sequenced. This thing doesn't exist. So whatever it is, it's close enough to breed with gray wolves, but it's its own thing. 90%. If 90% of something is something, it's something, right? If a drink is 90% poison, it's poison, right? So whatever this is, don't know, and I wish we'd give it a little more attention. And again, it's a totally separate fact. The Eurasian gray wolf and the Greenland gray wolf, that needs to be an issue that is addressed. To biologists, that alone is huge. We could spend days just talking about that and being excited about that. And nobody's talking about that aspect, but that's every bit as big. And I think Colossal was worried about saying anything too inflammatory. And so they said, well, 10% of this is Eurasian gray wolf and Greenland gray wolf, so we can confidently classify this as a wolf. It's like, what about the other 90%? The other 90% is something else. Whatever that is, that's what it is. If you had like something was 90% wolf and 10% Chihuahua, the Chihuahua DNA isn't going to show up. It's just going to look like a wolf. We breed falcons and we have that. It's like if something's 1/4 peregrine and 3/4 gyr, it just looks like a gyr falcon. So whatever this animal is, it's got to have looked in life like whatever that 90% of is. And I don't know what it is, but that's exciting to think about now. Got DNA of whatever that is.
Yeah, that was something that was not on my bingo card when that season of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch began, and I've just been absolutely fascinated watching the whole story unfold. And like you say, okay, granted, 10, 11% is something that is cataloged that we do know, but what about this remaining 89, 90% that is hitherto unknown? That's a big story in and of itself, is it not?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a mystery canine. And I think in the genetics industry, you don't have a lot of room to dedicate time and effort towards going down those kind of rabbit holes. There's shareholders and there's profits to be had, and you don't have time to waste on that kind of thing. Same thing with like all the Bigfoot stuff. There's a lot of times where they'll do a test or like we don't have time to do a test. And it's the same thing. I don't think they have the time, and I think they're worried about their reputation. But I mean, I would think that would be exciting. It's like this is a
Right?
mystery wolf. This is a mystery canine.
Why?
Let's figure out what it is.
Yeah, why? And that's what always frustrates me is why wouldn't they want to get scientific confirmation that there may be something to all these extraordinary stories and myths? I mean, here's the opportunity. We have the tools to do it. Why wouldn't they? And it's unfortunately a lot like you say. There's a lot of people just don't want to dip their toe
Yeah.
into that controversial area. And how is that good for science? I mean, honestly, how is that good for science if you're being given great data and, sure, you have to go in there believing, well, let's not jump to conclusions, but if the data's there saying that 90%, 89 to 90% of this data is something that we don't recognize that so far there's no other pair for it that we can compare it to. That's whether it ends up being an actual dire wolf of some kind, or whether it is an uncatalogued species that is just now being discovered. That's still a win. It's a win-win situation for science. At least that's the way that I view it.
I
Am I wrong
agree.
on that?
No, you're right, and I'm with you. I'm kind of a purist. For me, the thrill of discovery. I want truth. I want
Exactly.
truth above anything else. I want truth. But I think in the case of Colossal, they're the most premier of genetic labs currently, and they are trying to push really hard, like to bring back the dodo, to bring back the moa, to bring back the thylacine, to bring back the mammoth, and they're doing a lot of great work towards that. But they're requiring tons of investment money of people donating millions and millions to go to that. And I think they probably view it as that if we're dedicating any time to this, that may scare potential investors away. I think that's the
Right.
motivation, which is sad because I just want truth. But I can at least understand that if they're like, we're trying to bring back a dodo, we're trying to bring back a mammoth in our lifetime, we can't afford to go down this side rabbit hole. I think for us, it's front and center, and for them, it's a side rabbit hole. I think that's how they view it.
I think it's
Yeah, and
also a little interesting and almost concerning that they had the direwolf stuff come out with their company very,
Pretty
interestingly
quick.
timed
Yeah.
with them getting the samples from you guys. So
hmm
who knows if that had any factor with what they were doing there too.
But can't help but wonder. Yeah, because that
Right.
was very close. They say it was from some different samples, but can't help but wonder. It was very close in the timing.
is there actual DNA in existence from a dire wolf
Yep.
remains? Is there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, direwolves are
So
from the Pleistocene, so depending on which field of science you're saying, it's like between 9 to 12,000 years ago is when the Pleistocene switches into the Holocene. So basically every animal alive today was here on the earth somewhere during the ice age. Not all of them made it to our time, but like the ecosystems we have are collapsing ecosystems. Like we should still have direwolves. We should still have mammoths. We
right.
should still have muskox in the Uintahs in Utah. These are animals that were here, and dire wolves and gray wolves both live side by side. And people just dismiss and say, well, gray wolves outcompeted dire wolves. Well, maybe, but um, you know, with some of these ecosystems, we had like over 40 species of pronghorn antilocaprids.
Hmm.
Some were as small as like a jackrabbit. Some of them had like 7 horns and all these different wackadoodle shapes and sizes. And now we only have one left. It's like, why? Why just that one? Don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to go down that rabbit hole too. But yeah, direwolves should still be here, but they're not.
Well,
And
A couple
and
now we're
questions.
bringing them back.
Oh, I have a couple questions about that.
Mhm.
I guess one was if this thing that were in the creek were a dire wolf, wouldn't the DNA more closely relate to extant, like what is it, African wild dogs and the other types of animals rather than gray wolves? Something like that wouldn't that would have been what we would expect to see, right? If it
Yeah,
was a dire wolf, since they're more closely related.
Yeah, that's what we'd expect. And so whatever it was, apparently was able to cross with the dire wolf, um, or with gray wolves. But again, your Asian gray wolf and Greenland gray wolf are not the gray wolf that we have in North America. So I mean, so let me put this is not by relation, but by geography. If I said, well, 10% of this animal is dingo and African wild dog, and the other 90% is a new wolf, it's basically the same thing, not by geographic. Just because I say gray wolf, your brain's like, oh, wolf. We got wolves in America.
Yeah, we got
But
those.
yeah, but a Eurasian gray wolf and a Greenland gray wolf are so stinking distinct and genetically distinct from a North American gray wolf or a timber wolf that they shouldn't be here. So I mean, like I've even thought, did somebody somehow have a weird pet or something, some pet wolf, that got loose, but what's the other 90%?
Right. Well, and my second question was about that. I read somewhere someone who must have known at least a little bit about DNA testing. I don't know how much. I don't remember my source. So take that for what it's worth. But they were saying that result was more indicative of some sort of contamination in the sample and not an actual result. They're like, yeah, if it's contaminated, that's exactly the type of result you would expect. Do you know anything about that? I don't. Zero about it.
They sourced it and they compared it. So they had a complete sequence, and they're like, this is a complete sequence from another life form, another canid, and they were comparing it to all the other, because they've got all these other canids that they have documented. They're like, this is just a new one. And
That's crazy.
And again, the assumption is close enough that it could interbreed with this. I mean, it already is a hybrid. If a Eurasian gray wolf and a Greenland gray wolf are distinct species, so therefore this is a tribred. So the assumption is that it's mostly this animal, and whatever it is, somewhere along the way, it has this little bit of DNA from these two other species in there. So,
which is extremely anomalous, no matter what this thing is.
100%.
That's anomalous in multiple ways, actually.
Yes.
Yep. And like you said, Ben, how that cannot be front page news, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's like one of those stories that you would think that the media would just pounce on and be like, "Can you believe this? Look at this. This is extraordinary." But yeah, but it kind of also, speaking of colossal biosensors, it kind of leads us down that road of, with extinct animals, which ones should we bring back and should we bring them back? And my own personal bias on that is that if there's an animal like the thylacine or the dodo or the passenger pigeon that went extinct because of man, because of overhunting or something like that, then if we have the means to bring them back, I'm all for it. I would love to see something like the thylacine brought back or the dodo, if nothing else. So yeah, but then you get into stuff. Well, okay, we know that Colossal has also been talking about bringing back the woolly mammoth, and I guess my question with that would be, presumably the mammoth died out because of natural, natural selection, changing climates, whatever the case may be.
That's because of this. This is why.
That's okay.
That's
good.
Everywhere humans went, we killed off proboscidae right away. So that's one of the ones that I'm actually all for. Not
I'm
only bringing them
yeah.
back, but for bringing them back in the wild. Like that is an ecosystem we should have. We should have mammoths pooping and leaving that poop in the forest, knocking down a certain number of trees intentionally, helping a certain amount of carbon to come out in a certain way. Um, I think we should have mammoths again. Um, I even if like I do, they're not going to do this, but I'd be all for them just releasing Indian elephants in like Big Bend National Park in Texas. Just release them. Just haven't heard of elephants there. That is the ecosystem it's meant to have. That be reintroducing bison as well, but also Indian elephants, and then they do fine in that environment. They're supposed to be here. We killed them off.
That's
The other
awesome.
ones, it's like dodos would have a hard time being on their island, Mauritius, because of all the ground predators we've introduced. But I still think we should bring them back. Passenger pigeons would do great. We should bring them back. Carolina parakeets. I don't know if you guys ever heard of those guys. Like we had parrots all the way up to Canada. These bright colored parrots called Carolina parakeets. Very recent extinction, 1900s. We killed them off. But yeah, I'm all for it. The moa, if they can bring that back in New Zealand, heck yeah. Yep. Bring them back. I'm all for it if we can. And the thylacine is a long stretch, but boy, that would be awesome. And they're making some good headway on that one too.
Gosh, I hope so. The thylacine is such an interesting creature. I mean, I love because it's one of the extinct ones that we actually have video footage of. Ones that were in captivity, and it's just such a
The
bizarre
thylacine
looking
skull.
creature. That's amazing. Wow.
Oh, nice.
And look how much it looks like a canine. It looks like a coyote and a wolf crossed, but it's not. It's a marsupial. It's wild.
That is just the
They got
coolest
bigger
thing.
than that. This is a female. but they
And
got
I had no idea that mammoths that man played a role. I thought it was all
nope,
environmental based. So that's
nope.
in
Humans,
that case, I hope they bring them back.
yeah. Camels too. We had a ton of camels in America. There's a lot of things that there were changes going on, but it's the same thing. The horses. I'm glad that we have herds of wild horses now, and people are like, well, they're not native. It's like, yeah, they are. That's where they originally came from. Originally. It's like we should have horse herds, we should have bison herds, we should have camelids. Like I wish they would release guanacos and vicuñas in America as well. Like these are like do it in Big Bend National Park. That's where they've suggested it. It's like release the closest relatives to these things, and you're going to have a super healthy, super balanced ecosystem. It's just not happening. There's certain plants that take over in the absence of things, and the soil just becomes sterile and worthless without having like the poop of these giant herbivores and them rolling in it and tearing it up. And yeah, wish we could bring them all back.
It all balances out if you have the right components, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You remove important components and it gets out of balance.
So speaking of animals like that in their natural free range habitats, there's one other thing we wanted to talk to you about today, Ben, and that's this amazing creature that seemingly is out of place that was very recently caught on camera out there in the Uintah Basin that would seem to maybe be a possible explanation for some of the exceedingly large paw prints that have been discovered on the ranch. And that particular creature, of all things, is not a mountain lion, but yet rather a jaguar. So Ben, can you kind of walk us through that if you could?
Yeah. So we've had signs on the ranch of a new predator coming in and changing the balance. As you guys know, in Utah, we're 25 years into a drought and all the ecosystems are very strained. But 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, all of a sudden the ranch exploded. All the biomass on the small scale, quail, antelope, ground squirrels, like the Uintah ground squirrels, potguts, uh, turkeys, pheasants, all these, and quail just started to explode up on the ranch. And we're like, why? There wasn't excessive rain. What's going on? So whatever normally predates on these smaller things is getting tackled. And we started finding these enormous paw prints, and we just kind of said, maybe excessively large cougar. And we were finding these scat samples that had coyote guard hairs and raccoons, and even raccoon bones, even raccoon jawbone in it. It's like, who's eating a section of jaw and having it pass through their digestive system? So wolves will kill coyotes, but they won't eat them. They're too closely related. It's like you eating a chimpanzee. You wouldn't do it. It's like, it feels weird. I'm hungry, but that seems kind of wrong. And so they'll kill them, but they won't eat them. So we kind of thought, well, maybe a cougar, but in the back of my head, I'm like, well, there's these portals that supposedly open up on the ranch, and people have seen what looks like ice age animals on the ranch, as well as even like dinosaur like stuff, apparently like in the 90s. So who knows? Maybe there's a jaguar. We had jaguars here. I got it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so this is a modern day jaguar. We also had a bigger type of jaguar here as well. We had both of these, two jaguar species during the ice age. Now we only have the one left. And we know the jaguars are in Mexico and Arizona. But then Caleb said, hey, I got this friend. And she said, just right outside of the ranch, there in Roosevelt, saw this black cat, and check the video, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a freaking black jaguar. Now, there's not melanistic cougars, and to give you a size, this is a cougar by comparison. And with any of these skulls, you got to imagine, you got to flesh this out. This head is the size of a volleyball. The jaguar is fleshed out, much bigger. Well, whatever this thing was, this big cat, black, shiny, big long tail, and you see in the footage, the mom and the daughter are freaking out. They're like, is that a black bear? No. Oh my gosh, no. Is it a tiger? No, it can't be. It's black. And they're freaking out. Their impression is it's about the size of a black bear. And I've been to the site to check it out compared to the bushes and the rocks. And it's like, yeah, this is like indicative of the size of like a female black jaguar. Now, cougars are not melanistic. If you go online and look up black cougar, you'll find doctored images. They're all fake. I have friends, Troy Hyde of Animals in Montana, Doug Seuss from, Bart the Bear up in Brigham City. I have friends in the big animal industry. And across the board, people have been trying for over 100 years to selectively breed cougars to get that black DNA, to have a melanistic one. Can't do it. It cannot do it. There's melanistic leopards, pretty common. Melanistic jaguars, really easy to do, both in captivity and in the wild. So whatever this is, it looks all the world like a black jaguar, and it's just a couple miles away from the ranch, which is right. It was right along the river that feeds into the ranch, and people have said, well, maybe this is somebody's illegal pet. But if that's the case, and again, I can tell you because I have friends in this industry, if you have a big cat and it gets loose, it's going to come looking for people. Either give me food or I'm going to be near you to try to cause some damage. People would have seen this thing, and it's not. It's being stealthy and sneaky and hunting on its own and going unnoticed. So you have options. This seems to be a black jaguar. Is it a modern day black jaguar that for some reason is in Utah that made its way all the way up from Mexico? Seems like a stretch. Is it from the ranch? We don't know how the ranch operates or why the things happen there that do, but there seems to be a big cat killing things on the ranch. Is it a portal that opened up? And this is a jaguar from the past, like from the Ice Age when we had jaguars roaming around Utah prevalent. I don't know. But between all the evidence, I got to get more scat samples, and I want to go around with Caleb and Nate and just let's just find all the paw prints we can find. They've documented a bunch that send me pictures, with a knife sitting on the ground next to it, and it's a big old freaking paw, like that big. It's like
Right.
almost as big as like a tiger, because again, I have friends who train lions and tigers, and it's like that's huge. So big black cat on the ranch. There's so many myths and so many stories, and everybody thinks they've seen a black cat. But we have this on footage, broad daylight, behind the soda shop in Roosevelt. Like, we should be talking about that. That's something that people should be discussing and be like, wait a minute, have you seen anything? Because that's doesn't make sense. That's got me really excited.
Yeah, and that was kind of a moment where when you showed that in your presentation where we get to see the actual video clip that you're talking about, there is no question that what you're looking at is a very large black cat, like you said, with a shiny black coat of fur on it and a nice, beautiful, long black tail. And I mean, plain as day, that's what you're looking at. And folks, we're going to put a link to that video that Ben did, the presentation that he did in the, we'll put that in our item description so that you can go out and look at that video. Because folks, I highly recommend you watch that video that Ben put out, and you can find it on the Hutchings Museum Institute's YouTube channel, which I highly recommend subscribing to as well. But that was like the big jaw drop moment for me, Ben, because I'd heard, I've heard Pete Kelsey tell the stories about the big paw prints that he's found on the ranch, and Caleb has been on our podcast before talking about it. Chris Bartell has told stories of these big prints, and then this big wolf-like creature that he saw one time when he was out on patrol on the ranch. So the fact that there is a huge predator animal out there seems to be, pretty much a certain thing, specifically with that jaguar. And if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the video, the presentation that you gave, you mentioned that one thing that not cougars, that jaguars are drawn to, though, is bodies of water, right?
Correct.
And that creek that runs on Skinwalker Ranch does eventually wind its way over toward Roosevelt, does it not?
Yeah, it goes right there. It goes, if you follow it on the Google Maps, it goes right up and then it goes under and right over to where that place was, right? That soda shop. It goes right to it. You just plop on in and go on over. So yeah, they swim. They love to swim. They'll attack caimans, which are like crocodiles from the water.
Yeah.
They'll be like
Yeah.
in the water and come up and attack them and eat them. So to me, a jaguar in Utah hunting coyotes and hunting raccoons, which are also semi-aquatic. You're going along the river, you see a raccoon, and who's going to attack a raccoon? They're like bears. They're one of the few animals that most predators, their claws on their hands and feet are just for running. Dogs, wolves, I couldn't care less about their claws. It's just the face. But raccoons, the Cyanid family, and cats, those are an exception because they'll come at you with all four paws. So no predators are going to be going after raccoons. Who would do that? But a jaguar would. It's like, I'm going through the water. Hey, eat you. And it's passing. You can always tell because one of the biggie things, the raccoons eat the crayfish, and the crayfish tail scales are something I'm seeing. So I'm seeing cat scat that has coyote hairs and also has clumps of what's left of meat and skin and fur, and also has these scales. So it's eaten the viscera, it's eaten the guts of the raccoon, and those crayfish scales have passed through. So it's definitely eating the raccoons. It's, and that, again, section of raccoon jawbone. Who's eating a section of jaw? That's not normal. You don't eat a bone that big. It's pretty cool.
That's wild to think that there might be a black jaguar or something like that just wandering around out there,
doing its thing, walking right past it, and just in the shadows, 2 bushes away, for all you know.
Yep,
it's freaky.
Wow.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, obviously, it's fun to speculate, and I have to go down that road because we have the accounts in the Skinwalkers at the Pentagon book, written by Colm Kelleher and George Knapp and Jim Lakatsky, where there's the account of what has been somewhat derisively called the dino beaver, right? Making an appearance on the ranch. This creature
which we
that
had. Okay, we got to compare here.
Wow.
Here's a regular modern day beaver. Here's the Ice Age beaver.
Holy cow.
So this weighs as much as a lion. This is a 300-pound beaver. Okay, I mean, look at this compared to the jaguar. I mean, you're not getting a good sense of scale here, but drop of bones here. Jaguar, dino beaver.
Good Lord.
Look at those teeth. Wow. Casteroides. It's like, this thing is
massive.
Massive.
Yikes. Wow.
So
I'm not in favor of bringing back 300.
We don't need those beavers.
Guys. Nope. I know some people that spend a lot of time to get rid of beavers.
Yes,
they cause damage, man. They'll just come.
They really do.
Even these ones, just these ones, even with those teeth, they'll just come in and just take down a tree. Can you imagine a 300-pound beaver coming in? What they could do? That's insane.
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
Well, folks, now you know why Dragon and Caleb and Nate are always armed when they're on the ranch.
Those dino beavers, man. Yes, there's only one dino beaver we like.
That's right. And he comes on the podcast often. Oh, gosh. It blows my mind. Again, why that footage hasn't made at least the rounds here on the news in Salt Lake City, in Utah, KSL or, ABC4 or one of these prominent Utah-based local news stations. And
just even like, hey, everybody out there, keep your eyes peeled. If you see this, we'd love to hear.
Exactly, because I mean, it would pose a threat. I mean, what happens if you're, some fisherman or some kid that's just walking out along the bank of this river, and all of a sudden, bam, there's a black jaguar, black panther right there in front of you. That constitutes a clear and present danger to the community if there really is a large animal like that. I mean, people freak out when cougars come down from the mountains into the suburbs. We've had how many stories of cougars coming down and showing up in people's backyards and whatnot. I mean, that's terrifying, especially if you have young kids. Imagine what this would be like to folks out there in the basin, knowing that
could be a jaguar running around. Something there's some big black cat running around.
Exactly.
And you probably don't want your kids to go pet it if they run into it.
Don't go try to give it a hug.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. So, Ben, is there any other, I guess, kind of changing gears a little bit here, of all the amazing data that you've uncovered on the ranch and these great experiments that you've seen there, uh, are are you yourself an experiencer of any strange phenomena? Have you seen or experienced anything either on the ranch or maybe in the basin at large or anywhere else in Utah? Are you an experiencer?
Yep. Because I normally talk about all my stories on the ranch, how about a couple of stories that are off the ranch?
Sure.
And hopefully they won't disappoint. These are, and this first one I like never share. I'm only starting to share it. I was, talking with my parents about it the other day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember when this happened." So when I was like fourth or fifth grade, my grandparents had a cabin up Big Cottonwood Canyon, and it's right on the edge of this hill that overlooks all into the mountains and Kessler Peak. It's just beautiful, just nothing but wilderness. And I walked out and I looked out there and I just was like, my senses were arrested. I just felt something different. It's almost kind of like, when they say when lightning's about to strike, you get electricity, your hair stands up and there's a change in pressure. Like I walked outside and all of a sudden there was like a change in pressure. And it was almost like time stood still. Time was still moving on, but time stood still. And I look over and almost level with this cabin it was shaped like a boomerang. It was a UFO and it was technically black. It had lights along it, but it was the impression of was green, like a green hue. It wasn't green, it was black with these white lights, and it was kind of facing you. So it was a little, I'm trying to do this right. So it was a little bit up so I could see the back parts kind of pointing down. And I'm just like, and then it turned and it went and it just stayed a level and it went over to where kind of Donut Falls are. And I was like, I went out, ran in, and I was screaming my
Oh.
parents, I was telling them, and they're like, "Oh, you probably just saw some clouds." I'm like, "No, I saw this, and this pressure change was different." That one, and I was talking to my parents about this story the other day, and the irony is the next story I'm going to tell, and I almost don't want to bring up that fact. The next story I'm going to tell happened in the same general area and is totally unrelated. Well, no, I'm going to tell one more UFO story. And this isn't exciting. I was up in the Uintahs doing astrophotography, set up a camp, bajillion miles away from anybody. And I'm up there photographing the stars, and I see this white light brighter than the space station, which could be anything. And this is way up there. This seems to be like up in the stratosphere. And it's going along and it's going very fast, like a really fast satellite. And then it makes a right turn. It's like Tron. I can't even do it with my finger because you have to slow down. It was just, it was like Tron. It freaked me out so bad. It was like 2 a.m. I packed all my stuff and left and drove all the way down from the high Uintas because I'm like, that's the laws of physics changing. Even if you did that with a laser, even if you're moving a laser, it slows down. This was exactly like Tron. Bajillion miles an hour, straight right angle. And you can't even do that with your fingers. You can't. You slow down, right? And it's boom, and freaked me out. The last one, and again, I hesitate to say this, but I'm just sharing what I experienced. Big Comet Canyon, which again, my biologist mind says if Bigfoot's real, it's probably like a gigantopithecus or some kind of thing that,
Right.
my biology brain goes with natural
Mhm.
things. There wouldn't be one in Big Comet Canyon. So I was 22, 23. So walking along, I was snowshoeing and I saw these big tracks. It was very wet snow, size and shape of a Sasquatch, and in the snow and not super well defined, but definitely. And they start going down the hill into this grove of very young alpine firs, subalpine firs that are very narrow pine trees that go all the way down to the ground. And I see that the tracks go into there, and I see this gap in between the trees. I see a bipedal orangish red thing, 7, 8 feet tall, cross through and go. And I'm like, if it was any mammal, a moose, a bear, you would see body and then you'd see the next set of legs. And this is just it crosses in and it crosses out. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not doing this. So I go back up to the cabin, and my truck was Ford Explorer, kind of stuck. And I get it unstuck, and all of a sudden I get this really bad feeling like I'm being watched. And it really started to freak me out. And I finally get unstuck and I start driving out. And yes, whatever that thing was had come up from there and apparently had come around and had started to walk in line with the road and then down into the road where the tracks are gone because it's, pavement. So whatever it was, and those tracks were there on the way up. So I don't know what it was. And I don't, that's my closest thing to like a Sasquatch story, but it was a biped. It was big. It was orangish brown, and I absolutely saw it and saw the tracks. Didn't have smartphones back then, so didn't have photographs of it. But again, if Bigfoot's a real thing, the default, my brain goes to basic biology, but it could be something entirely different from, it could be anything. It could even be something, and it is interrupting your mind so that you see it that way, and it's actually something else. And it could be anything, but whatever it was, with left tracks in the snow, big, giant tracks, not as big as a snowshoe, but almost. And it wasn't a snowshoe, it was rounded. Didn't have the grit. So those are kind of three of my weird stories. I got lots of them, but those are three that stuck with me.
That's still pretty
those are awesome.
fascinating.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The running
thanks.
joke is you just saw Caleb bench. That's
Gotta be
that's what
about
he
right.
calls himself sometimes.
Come on, Caleb's not that tall.
He's got the bulk for it, though.
That he does.
To
That he
do the
does.
Sasquatch walk.
Yeah. Well, heck, guys, I could just simply take off my shirt, and that would prove once and for all that Bigfoot exists. I mean, but
I don't think we need to be blinded.
public decency laws prohibit me from doing so, and common sense as well. So I spared you folks. But no, Ben, thanks so much for sharing those. I myself, I've never had a Sasquatch sighting. But I'm an experiencer myself. I think I may have seen my very first UFO just this last year at Phenomicon. At Phenomicon, they do this event every Friday night of when they're having Phenomicon called the Voice of the Believers Open Mic and Dinner, and they hold it in Remember the Main State Park there. And I think for the first time I saw something. Again, I'm not an expert. It could have a perfectly rational explanation, but it did those erratic movements that you're talking about. It did these seemingly impossible right angle turns, stopping on a dime, scooting across the horizon and coming to a dead stop, and then just faster than anything I've
which is
ever.
impossible with the not only biologically, but structurally. If you had a structural craft and you had it do that move, it would shred itself to pieces.
Yeah, the inertia alone, it would turn, and specifically if there's anything living inside, it would be turned to juice with the G forces and the inertia. I mean, just crazy stuff. But yeah, I've seen my experiences have been more in the realm of shadow beings and shadow things and really weird and trippy stuff like that. But it's let me know if you experience this, because when I and Jonny, of course, has had his own unique experiences, and Mr. Nyberger here is paranormal kryptonite. He just nothing ever happens to him or
I have
near him.
experienced nothing.
Well, I grew up in a haunted house, and the people we got it from left in a hurry because of it. They still had food in the fridge and baby diapers stacked up and everything. And so we grew up kind of trying to understand that. And then when the ghost hunting stuff started happening, then we started doing that. But the Hutchings Museum is incredibly active, and we always get stuff. So if you want to come do an investigation here and just hang out sometime, we ought to do it some night. And if you're kryptonite, maybe we can break the streak. I'll let you get some.
I'm down to ghost hunt. I like ghost hunting.
That would be awesome.
And I don't even like calling it ghost hunting necessarily, but that's just the common term.
Yeah.
But we get consistent results.
Interacting.
We get consistent results and consistent voices that year after year after year seem to be the same individuals. And it's been kind of cool, kind of neat to see.
Is it more residual or reactive?
It used to be both. Now it's more very much intelligent. It seems like in the old days we had all this stuff going on, and we had somebody come in and do a blessing because it was just disruptive to staff. I had one time this old man Jimm who used to work here, and we're sitting there down by one of the rooms, and we look down and somebody's tugging on his pant leg. There's nothing there, and it's just tugging, and he was real uncomfortable. And he was like, "Oh, let's continue this conversation somewhere else." And he would never talk about it again. Just looked like a kid just tugging at his pant leg while we're sitting there. But somebody came in and did a blessing, say what you will about that. And ever since then, it's like we're down to this. And what's left seems to be intelligent and usually willing to interact and to talk we've even done things with yes or no, like here, we turn on this flashlight we have sitting on the ground if like this picture or show up pictures of people from the past and seems to be self-aware whatever it is.
Have you tried a ghost box?
Some people in my little group of friends I have not myself, but we have, and they've definitely gotten some results and some responses with it.
I can try to remember to bring one out next time I'm out that way.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Just sitting around.
It'd be a blast. And like I said, it's pretty good. Here's Jake. This is really good information that you ought to consider on this kind of thing. I'm a flint napper, flint napping, stone tools, right? And we had a club that would meet here and do it. And we still do sometimes. What we found, because then that's silica. Every time you're scrape, pop, scrape, pop, tons of silica dust, basically like glass or quartz dust in the air. The nights after, if we did an investigation immediately after, the EVPs were crystal clear, perfectly clear, way better. And it's like, okay, maybe that's something we should consider and actually stage and say, let's do a bunch of flint napping intentionally and then do it.
Right.
So it's almost like, can the sound waves pass through better if you have a matrix of silica in the air? Could be. That makes sense. So, or I mean, you could have something more anomalous of why that is, but we've definitely seen that every time if we do flint napping and then in the next day or so do an investigation, we get way better results and crystal clear EVPs.
That's really fascinating. There might be a correlation there for sure. That's
might be why my quartz watches stop working.
I was gonna say it might be like a quartz radio.
Yeah,
tuner.
I still haven't fixed that quartz watch. I think that one's just a dud now.
Well, it's
the one that died at a particular interesting time.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
No, just
not
in the Bermuda Triangle.
Recent. Okay.
Now it's a souvenir, a memoir testifying of the truth of the event.
It's interesting that you talk about the how people came in and they did a blessing and they were able to get rid of at least some of whatever the phenomena was. And it takes me back to several years ago, about 2 years ago, actually. My good friend Jeff Freeman of the J Free 906 podcast, he had 2 Navajo Rangers on there that have also been on the ranch, John Redbird Dover and his partner Stan, and they talked about how it doesn't matter what your religious or spiritual background is, as long as you have a belief of some kind of a higher power, whether it's indigenous, Native American, or here in Utah the prominence of Latter-day Saint members. If you have a belief that you can do something to cast something out or to give a blessing, by most accounts that I've heard, which these 2 Navajo Rangers even confirmed, is that it does work. Whether you have like a talisman of some kind that you wear, or if you have some kind of a belief that you believe and you have the faith, I guess there's that crazy word. If you have the faith that something can protect you from things unseen, then it seems to work. And we've seen extraordinary things happen when they brought Rabbi Zadok onto the ranch in season 2, I think it was, where he performs the ancient Hebrew ceremony to essentially open portals, and then we see these really interesting things start to happen shortly after he does it. So I think there's definitely I think the world and or perhaps more appropriately, the universe is a much bigger, far more interesting place than most of us really realize. And when you have those anomalous experiences, like you had, Ben, and that I've had, and that John Stratton has had, and our partner Roger, who unfortunately can't be with us. Roger is like a magnet
Yeah.
to these kind of experiences, um, but it's really weird that the moment that you cross that threshold, at least for me anyway, when I went from not necessarily being a believer but to being an experiencer, your whole world changes.
Mm,
And for me, it didn't, as a lot of people would think, particularly with my experiences that I've had with shadow beings, it didn't shake my testimony of my faith. It didn't really make me afraid. It actually, if anything, affirmed the beliefs and the things that I'd already taught through my own religion or spirituality. And it made me, even though my experiences were definitely scary and traumatic, I believe it made me a better person, because it made me more aware of the things that maybe I wasn't paying attention to, or the things that I dismissed too
mm,
quickly out of hand as being the realm of nonsense. And that's the way it is for a lot of people until something like that happens to you.
yeah.
And
Well, we're not meant to think about, like, the nature has set for us what we're supposed to think. In the daytime, we have daylight and we're supposed to see proper nouns all over. Trees, enemies, friends, food, danger. And then when night comes, all those things disappear in the darkness, and you have fire. And so now you have warmth, you have reassurance. And unless you're camping, if you're just, this was your daily life anciently, you look at the stars, you briefly, for the sake of the stars, you think about the big mysteries, and then you go to bed and you get a proper night's sleep. That's the normal thing. But nowadays we have this disruption, this digital disruption. We have fake daylight going on all the time. And so we don't have the opportunities to connect to these deeper things, like in a literal way. And I think that having something like having an experience, um, or having a blessing, having a shaman come in, or having a rabbi come in and do a prayer. These are the kind of things. Being part of a drum circle, it sounds hokey, it sounds woo woo, but it actually allows it to be a catalyst to allow your mind to get into a state where you can see, think, understand, comprehend, or experience things that we're meant to be connected to. We're not meant to be connected to them all the time. We're not, that's not probably healthy to nonstop be that. But we're supposed to some of the time, and we are ostracizing ourselves away from it with this digital world and this world of fake light and perpetual daylight, even in the night. So, so these things are good. So again, a blessing, some of these kind of things. These are things that help us to reconnect to those things.
Right. Well said. Well said. So, Ben, how can people learn more about what you do at the Hutchings Institute and the museum down there? Is there a website you can direct them to? Or
Yeah, the best thing, you can just look up the Hutchings Museum online. We have a YouTube channel that's just the Hutchings Museum, and I've also got a couple YouTube channels. One is Ben Woodruff Falconry, which I have a lot of biology and bird stuff, and also a lot of archaeology and paleontology. And I have another channel called Desert Lore, which is mostly history, camping, exploring, bushcraft skills, and teaching the crazy connections of the Southwest region that a lot of people don't know about. Connecting with Mexico and the Maya and the ancient trades and some of that. So those are the kind of the three channels. I got some other channels too, but those are the ones that I'm doing the most on: is Hutchings Museum, Ben Woodruff Falconry, and Desert Lore. And going on any of those and watching some of those videos will be a big help.
right on. So, folks, we absolutely offer our biggest glowing endorsement for all of Ben's YouTube channels, and please go ahead and subscribe to him. Show some love and support to Ben, and especially the amazing work that he does there with the Hutchings Museum. It's truly a great place. And folks, if you live here in Utah or along the Wasatch Front and you haven't made the trip down there, I cannot speak highly enough of it. If for no other reason that when you drive over to where the museum is located, if you're coming from I-15, you're going to pass the world famous Lehigh roller mills featured in Footloose, right? So catch a little bit of film history as well, and but certainly there's so many more awesome reasons to take the time out of your day to go and check out the fascinating things and the truly educational things that await you there at the Hutchings Museum Institute. And Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for
Absolutely. Anytime.
taking the time to share with us your insights and your experiences. And we cannot wait to see you at Phenomicon. I just know it's going to be a great time.
I'm looking forward to it. Not have me back anytime. I love talking with you guys.
Wonderful. Well, closing thoughts and remarks. We'll go around the room here, and Mr. Nyberger, we'll start with you.
Echo what he just said. Can't wait to see it at Phenomicon. Loved last year's session, and I'm looking forward to whatever's going on this year. And yeah, it was great to get to talk to you in person. I don't think I got a chance to talk to you in person last year.
Yeah.
And while we were actually at Phenomicon, but this year we will.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on. This was wonderful.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And Jonny, closing thoughts and remarks from you, my friend.
Yeah, I just love talking science. Appreciate you coming out here and joining us. Can't wait to get back out there to Utah and hang out, relax, chit chat, and maybe do some ghost hunting.
Yeah, come on out and we'll do an investigation here. It'll be great.
That would be a blast. And Ben, closing thoughts and remarks from you.
Just the thought is, pay attention. The phenomenon is real. I wish it wasn't, because that would make things easier, but we're a curious species. We want to know, we want to understand. So always be open to the possibility that you might be wrong. Be skeptical, not a skeptic. Be willing to believe, but don't be a believer. And pay attention, because whatever's going on at Skinwalker Ranch and in the greater sphere of this is real. And that's exciting. It's really exciting. So hopefully we can figure it all out together.
Ditto.
Amen. Amen, brother. Yep, completely agree. So, folks, if you liked what you saw today in our podcast, and if you haven't subscribed to the Soul of the Unexplained YouTube channel yet, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button down there somewhere, wherever it is. And also give us a like. If you like the content here, give us a like, because we like likes. And tell us your thoughts. What did you think about this particular episode? And are you an experiencer as well, folks? So we'd always love to hear. And we do have a presence on Facebook. We don't post an awful lot on there, the Soul of the Unexplained Facebook page. And we are also on X or Twitter, if you're an old school guy like me. So give us a follow, and we love to hear about some of the stories that some of you might have out there as well, especially if you are an experiencer as well. Folks, thanks again. Massive tip of the hat once more to Ben. And one of these times we've got to get Ben to come on here, maybe with Chris Roberts, and do a tag team with our archaeologist and biologist.
Awesome.
And that would be just a blast, because we had Chris on just about a week or so ago, and he's such a great guy. We just think
I listened to it. That was a great interview. I adore Chris. He is.
Yes, indeed. Alrighty, folks. Well, take care of one another, love one another, be nice to bunnies, and eat as many tacos as you can possibly get, because tacos make everybody happy. And if you don't like tacos, well, try harder. All right, folks. Thanks again. This is Jimm Kelgard signing off for the Soul of the Unexplained. We will see you next time right here on the Soul of the Unexplained. See ya.